Dr. Rich, thank you so much for being with us today. We're talking about teen mental health. We're talking about social media and sort of how they intersect, right? Generally speaking, social media is driven by the ability to engage, right? We want to be interested in what we're looking at, what we're consuming, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snap, or TikTok, right? So how does that play into what young people are consuming when it comes to their interest in mental health related content that's produced on these platforms?
I think the first thing we have to recognize is how fertile the internet and social media in particular are for some key developmental tasks of adolescents. The first being they seek experience. So they're seeking it outside themselves through the web. They are looking outside themselves and their nuclear family for the first time in their life and becoming socially conscious. So the social media place is a place where they can meet up with peers who believe the same things, who want the same things. They're also really working on their identity, building their identity. And one of the wonderful things about social media and the web is that young kids who are struggling with their identity, whether it be their sexuality, their gender, et cetera, and who historically have been isolated, marginalized, and bullied in their home communities, can find a community of peers online. And finally, with those new identities, they seek connection. Facebook, even though it's where all the old people are now, is the largest nation on earth. There are over 3 billion people on there every month. That is a huge and powerful political, social force if it's to be harnessed that way. So these kids are trying to reach out, figuring out themselves and each other. And what social media does is it becomes kind of an enabler for what's going on for them. So if a child is anxious already, it may accelerate and amplify that anxiety because of the algorithms that are built in and because they are seeking to understand what's going on for themselves, but also seeking to compare themselves to others. And hopefully they will feel better than others. But then they run into the problem that we're all using social media the way the companies do, which is to promote ourselves, to market ourselves to the world. So most people are only showing the best of themselves, you know, the cool new car our dad got, or my hot boyfriend, or this new outfit, rather than being truly authentic. Now, as a pediatrician who specializes in adolescents, I'm a great optimist. And I believe that if we can learn to use social media right, that it can be an instrument of peace. If we are authentic, if we talk to each other, warts and all, let's think about the important relationships in our lives. They're those people who we love with their limitations and flaws, and who love us with our limitations and flaws, and we complement each other. We are comfortable with each other. And I'm hopeful that someday there will be a kid in Iran and a kid in the US who are on social media with each other, and if their leaders say that is the enemy, they'll say, no, that's not the enemy. That is my friend whom I know better than the leader of my country.
And that's an important point that you talked about right there, that we've talked about, you and I have talked about, is sort of, you know, you can't ban social media, right? This is a part of our everyday lives. This is something that connects us all, good or bad. And one of the things that we have to think about when it comes to using it, particularly when it comes to young people and teens, is that you teach them how to use this tool properly, right? I love the analogy you gave to me a while back when we talked about this, which was that it's like a power tool, right? You're not just going to hand a power tool to a young person and expect that they're going to be able to use it safely. This has to be taught, right?
Yeah. It's not like a power tool. It is a power tool. And what we need to do is step away from thinking of it as a toy or a treat to be given to the child if they get straight A's, or to be taken away if they misbehave, but really something like an automobile or a power saw, which is given to them when they need that tool, when you believe they can handle it responsibly and with respect for themselves and others in that space. And I think that it's really, really important to give this the respect as well as love that it deserves.
Now, one of the things that we've been hearing about lately is kind of related to that algorithm, right? We talk about TikTok specifically, just for example, right? Because that has a very strong algorithm that everything that you see in your feed is driven by what you are viewing, what you are liking, what you are commenting on, and essentially the topics you seem to be interested in. So for example, the hashtag mental health has over 67 billion searches on TikTok, which means people are interested in that. But that also means that their feeds become narrowly focused on some of this content, right? What potential dangers or negative impacts are there of constantly seeing content that's related to things you might already feel, like anxiety and stress, and constantly getting a feed that just focuses on those things when you're already dealing with it?
Well, with any subject, if the algorithm is there to focus you more and more on it, it will end up possibly being an echo chamber where you hear what you already believe, you hear it amplified, you are joined together with people who feel the same way. And particularly around mental health issues, most of those people are going there because they're concerned for themselves or someone they're close to. And unfortunately, if the algorithm is tweaked the wrong way, it will go down this dark spiral into something really scary and upsetting. And so one of the things that we're doing at the Digital Wellness Lab is actually working with TikTok and Meta and other companies to say, what we need is to open up these subjects and bring in some cognitive dissonance, bring in some ideas of, you aren't all that bad. Things are not so awful. And here's another perspective on it. The problem with the algorithms is they end up with that narrowing and focusing and amplifying of what's already there, as opposed to saying, have you thought about it this way?
And part of the problem, I would imagine, is quality control, right? Because you obviously have influencers and content creators who do have expertise in mental health issues and psychology and counseling. But you also have people who are speaking from personal experience, for example, giving advice, putting out content that may be misinformation, right? With whatever good intention they may have, they're putting out information that could be taken the wrong way by certain young people. And the algorithm's not going to really distinguish between the good content and the bad content before it reaches the user, correct?
Absolutely. One of the real problems we have now with the current surge in mental health issues, which was, again, kind of amplified by the pandemic lockdown and our social isolation from each other, is that there really aren't enough therapists, there aren't enough psychiatrists, there aren't enough psychiatric inpatient settings to take care of the need. And what we are seeing is that there are influencers online who range the whole gamut from being MD psychiatrists to being, sort of sofa or coffee table therapists. I think that quality control becomes a real issue, as does safety. I think that when someone is feeling desperate, they will go to anybody for advice, and it can go in very bad ways if it's not handled correctly. And so maybe one of the things that we as a society should be thinking about is, these people are going to be online influencing. Should there be some kind of credentialing? Should there be some kind of way of being able to discern who is real and who is not going to be helpful to you?
A lot of parents will feel, pretty reticent about what's happening with their teens. But again, as you mentioned, this is a power tool, and they've got to learn how to wield that power tool correctly. What are some of the solutions that you suggest for young people who may be going down that spiral of searching for teen mental health content and are getting flooded with good information, bad information, but also potentially self-diagnosing and finding themselves, going down the wrong track? What are some of the solutions that you would recommend for young people, for their parents?
Interestingly, one of the really subversive questions I ask my adolescent patients when their parents are not in the room is, what could your parents do better? And almost invariably, the first thing out of their mouths is pay more attention to me. When you talk to the parents, they say, this kid never talks. I never know what's going on. They're not interested in talking to me. So I think the most important thing is to have an open, non-judgmental communication between the parent and the child. So that you are able to know where the child is, and the child is able to have confidence that their parent's not going to punish them for ending up at a party where there's booze, or going online and running into somebody who's sexting, for example. I think that we have to take the blame and shame out of it, both directed from parents to the kids, but also kids and parents toward themselves, and really understand that these young people are living in a continuous digital physical environment. These are not two separate worlds for them. It's not the real world and the virtual world. It's one world. And we have to be present and parenting and nurturing in that entire environment, not just in the one that we feel comfortable in and think we know. I think a lot of parents feel like they are invading their child's privacy by being involved in their digital lives. And a lot of times the kids embrace that. It becomes like rock and roll, that I like it even more because mom and dad don't understand it and don't like it. And I think that what we need to do is understand this is part of their world. Let's get to the bottom of what is engaging them, what is really moving them in positive as well as negative ways, and help them navigate that terrain with our cluelessness about the internet and social media, but our cluefulness about executive functions like impulse control and future thinking.
It's an incredibly important topic. And again, Dr. Rich, thank you so much for talking to us about it. I'm sure we'll be talking about this in the years to come, and we'll continue to keep the dialogue going, and hopefully some young people will learn something from what we've talked about today. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.